Howdy folks, if you watched the last video here, I had gotten the pump out of here. I actually had a little bit of trouble with that. I actually almost really needed a slide hammer, but I don't have one, and I ended up making a main puller here. Ended up taking some old starter bolts in that are the same thread as that pump and weld them to this puller here. This is an old junk puller I have. It ain't no good. It's missing a couple legs anyway, but I had 2 legs on it, which is enough to pull it out. So I ended up welding these bolts to it, so when you tighten it down, it would pull it out. Really need a slide hammer, but that's what I ended up having to do with that, so I could get that pump back out. So now we're ready to take and lay the gasket in here and get this thing buttoned up so it'll be done. So I got the pump. Let's go ahead and set that back down in here, and I'll show y'all how to set the gasket in there properly. Alright, I got the gasket laid in here. This is how it's supposed to go. And I apologize, these videos ain't perfect, but that was another thing. In the previous video, I had the gasket the wrong way. This is the proper way to do it. I had to actually look in the book and look online and double check this, but this is the correct way to do it. It's really important. You want to make sure that's correct. But see how all these holes line up all the way around now? You want to make sure that. That's how it's supposed to go in there. And another way you can tell is it's got these squares. If you take this out, see how it's got them squares right there? And then if you look on the gasket there, it's got 2 squares here, 2 squares here. That way we know it's lined up properly. Because if you turn it the other way, what happens is that nothing will line up right. So there's our squares. So if we line them up, say the holes ain't, that one's not lined up, that one's not lined up, that one's nowhere near lined up, you pretty much tell nothing's lined up right. So you want to make sure that it's turned like that, that the name is turned down, that it's turned the right way. That's one way to tell to make sure it's right. It's got the little squares right, these little ports in the case there, and this gasket's got 2 little squares that are about the same size as that. And if we lay those on there and line them up perfectly with these holes in these ports, everything lines up really good. So now we're officially ready to set the pump back in. I apologize for that. I know these videos ain't perfect, but I'm trying to do the best I can to help everybody out there. I'm learning as I go too. You know, I mean, this is the first time I've ever rebuilt a transmission, so that's why it's called How to Rebuild a Turbo 350 the Easy Way, because I'm trying to do it so that y'all know how to do it the easier way. Because a lot of videos don't show a lot of stuff on these, and this video series is not perfect in no shape, way, or form, but, you know, but not perfect, but I try to do the best I can. But just make sure this gasket's lined up on these ports, because that's a real big thing right there. You got to have them lined up right. We got them all lined up perfectly now. So now let's set our pump back in. Alright, one thing I want to point out too is don't forget to put your thrust washer back on. If you have shims, make sure and put your shims on, and that way everything's back in order there. I've already took transmission fluid and put on this thrust washer here, so we're good to go. Again, lining up with, this is a little notch in here. This has a little notch, so you just drop it on down like that, and it's lined up. So that'll keep it in place, so it's lined up like it's supposed to be. I took a little bit of transmission fluid and put on it. That'll help hold it so it doesn't get out of place when you set the pump back in, because sometimes these will fall off. But you can take a little petroleum jelly and put around it. That'll help hold it on, because you don't want, this has to be lined up in that pump there. It has to be lined up at that little ear there. There you go. Now y'all can see it. That's got to be lined up just like that. Now we're ready to officially set the pump back in. I made sure that our gasket's lined up right. It's lined up good. You want to make sure and do that, because this is the last chance to line that up. Because once you lay the pump in there, and start torquing it down. When you go to pull it out, if you have to pull it back out, you're going to mess that gasket up. So just make sure that's lined up before you set it in there. Alright, let's set this pump in here. Alright, I'm going to get this pump set it in here. Took some transmission fluid. I rubbed a little bit on the bushings on the inside of these. So let's set this on down in here. We'll make sure and line it up. The transmission fluid holds that thrust washer on there so that it won't drop. I made a little mark on it. Sorry about that, folks. Things will. See, that's what happened. The thrust washer came out of place on mine. I'm trying to hold it up. Sorry about that, folks. Apologize for the camera kind of falling there. But I was wanting to film this, but it's hard to do with just one hand free. But I got this sitting down in here. Everything's lined up. My little marks right here on the case. My marks right here on the pump. It's lined up like it's supposed to be. Now we're ready to put the bolts back in. But before we do that, we're going to replace them washers that come in the kit. So we'll do that next. Everything's lined up like it's supposed to be. And we'll be ready to start torquing these down in 3 steps. And then we will be about done with the inside of the case. Alright, I had to pull this pump back out. I'm glad I caught that. Not perfect, but don't forget you have to put that rubber O-ring that goes around this pump on the outside that comes in the kit. Don't forget to put that back on, because if not it'll leak. So I put mine back on, and we're going to go ahead and finally set this back in here. Don't forget to make sure your thrust washer's lined up right before you set it back in there. But I put the O-ring back on there. So don't forget to do that. Alright, welcome back here. Alright, we got new sealing washers here, and you get these in the kit. You want to make sure and take these out, and these go on the bolts that go over on this pump here. And you want to replace them on these, behind these bolts here. So we'll go ahead and do that and put on new washers on. They're real easy to replace. Alright, you just, sorry it's not the best light, but they have these washers on the back here. They're like a sealing washer. So you just want to take and unscrew them. They come right off. Just like this. Sorry, it's not the greatest quality, but alright, so they come off just like that. And you want to put the new ones on. You got to replace them. They help seal the pump. Alright, so we got our new sealant washers here. So we take our bolt here and just slide them on like this. And this one is ready to go back on. So we'll do that for all 8 of them. Alright, so we got all our washers replaced with new ones. Now we're just going to take and just doing a star pattern here and gently snug these down. And as we're trying to seat this pump back into the case, so you want to go really easy and be gentle with these. Yeah, if it doesn't feel like the bolt's turning right, take it back out, because you do not want to cross thread these. It's very important. Alright, got them all snugged down. I got the torque wrench set to 5 foot-pounds. This is the first step, so we're going to torque all these down in a star pattern to 5 foot-pounds, and this will be the first step. Alright, next step, I've got them all torqued down to 5 foot-pounds, and you got to do it in a star pattern, because if you don't, you do not want to strip any of these threads out. That's why I'm being very extremely careful with this. because you strip these threads out, then it makes it so hard, because then you got to pull the pump back out, then you got to go in there and either put a helicoil or end up having to run a tap through it. But you got to be very careful. So the next step, we're going to do it in 10 foot-pounds, and we'll go ahead and do that, and this will be the second step. Alright, I got them all torqued down to 10 foot-pounds. I went ahead and set my wrench for the final torque, which is 15 foot-pounds, and we're going to go ahead and tighten these down for the final time, and we'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so I got all these torqued down to 15 foot-pounds, and this pretty much completes all the internals. And now we're ready to come down here and start working on our valve body. But before we do that, that'll be in the next video. I'm going to take this Turbo 350 and I'm going to put it back on my bench right here, and I'll clean my bench off so we can lay it on the side so we can put the valve body back in. But that's where we're at right now. Real happy with it. It's coming along now. It got me a little bit nervous when I was putting these pump bolts in here, because a couple of them felt like they weren't going to go in. The threads didn't feel quite right, so I took and backed them back out, pulled the pump back out, make sure everything was lined up, and then put it back in, and then did the first one that was giving me a little bit of trouble first. Did that one first, and then that one went in fine, and then got the rest of them in, and it was pretty good. It was just slightly, the pump was off just a slight bit, and because it felt like it was going to cross thread, so I stopped right then and there and pulled all of them back out, took the pump back out, and made sure everything was lined up a little bit better, and put it back in, and now we're good to go. Very important about that. You do not want to cross thread those, because you cross thread them, I mean, you're pretty much screwed on that. You got to be very careful with that. So we got everything lined up, our marks lined up on the case, it's lined up on our pump. The pump only goes in one way anyway, but I went ahead and you can check your bushing play. This is your input shaft. You can wiggle it back and forth. Mine's getting tight. You can check your end play. I've already checked that earlier. And pretty good to go. So that pretty much is going to end this video here. Got a pump back in. And I'll see y'all in the next video where we get our valve body on. We'll get all that straight. And I hope y'all are liking the videos. I'm sorry, I know they're not perfect. I try to do the best I can. But, you know, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I learn as I go. But don't forget to make sure that your thrust washer's in there. If you got shims, mine don't have shims, but if you got shims, make sure that's in there, and make sure that seal, it's a rubber seal that goes in front of this pump here, make sure that's in there. Because I almost messed up on that. Because when I went to put the pump in there, I forgot to put the seal in there, so I went ahead and pulled it back out and put that seal back on and put it back in. So now I'm good to go. So do not forget that. This is the seal I was talking about. This is the old one that was on the pump, on the outside of the pump here. And you don't want to forget to put that back in, because as soon as you put that transmission back in the truck, it'll leak like crazy. So don't forget to put that back in. It's really important. Because I caught myself and put that back in there. You know, like I said, I'm not perfect. Try to do the best I can. I hope these videos, you know, I try to do the best I can with them. I hope they help the people out there. That's my main goal. I want to help people do this and save money. That's why I'm doing it. Because I'm trying to save money. But anyway, we got all these torqued down to 15 foot-pounds. And we're good to go. So y'all see y'all in the next video here. We'll do our valve body. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.